Hello? 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 I was wondering if you could give me some directions? Sorry, my mistake. I'll just be on my way. Not good.
Alrighty, hello everybody. I'm sure we've all, when playing Fable, thought about some of the most annoying enemies in the game, and here we've got some lore to talk about on what we both, I think, agree and consider the most annoying and painful enemies to fight in both Fable 1 and all through the games, I guess. So let's get straight into it. Hobs are small pests which resemble short and stout goblins, and they have actually appeared in all three games, so every Fable game to date. Which is crazy considering we kind of hate them.
Yeah.
Hobbes have been described in the Creatures of Albion Book 3 as the underrace of the dells and hollows. As such, they are said to have their genetics intertwined with the mud and slime of the deep country. According to legend, the very first Hobbes were lost children who had their souls stolen by dark nymphs. They can still transform lost children into more Hobbes, but the sheer number of Hobbes indicates that they have another method of reproduction, given that there isn't a pandemic of lost and kidnapped children throughout all of Albion.
That we know of anyway.
Yeah, as far as we're aware.
Although often considered dim-witted throughout the long history of Albion, Hobbes appear to have some cognitive abilities evidenced by a degree of ingenuity and social structure. They are also in possession of a surprisingly advanced culture, which exhibits traits of salvaging, locksmithing, construction, adoption, and even religion. As befitting their title, Hobbes make their home in a variety of intricate cave systems, oftentimes leaving to ambush humans. While Hobbes have limited social capabilities, they almost never appear alone, and on at least 2 occasions, Hobbes have accepted a human into their society and vice versa.
They come up to a human's waist, are bold, and have light grey, red, or black skin. Hobbes can mainly be found in Greatwood and Darkwood areas, and also the Hob Cave. The Hobbes have skilled axe wielders and mages with a shadow ball attack, which is the most annoying part of their entire ability set. Most Hobbes are weak, but they make up for it by attacking in large numbers. The Hobbes are one of the enemies fought in the arena as well. To open the demon door in Darkwood actually requires you to fight ever-increasing waves of Hobbes. A Hob called Maxley once made it to Bowerstone and filled the town with clothes he stole from a rich trader. He was eventually killed after he spoke his first word to the townsfolk, so obviously not quite smart enough to fully blend in.
That's also a great story when you really donate it to the school principal or whatever.
Yeah,
in
when he reads it out.
That's really cool. So Hobbes are generally weak against flame, sharpening, and lightning augmentations. And in the original Fable, as well as Fable Lost Chapters, there are 4 basic classes of Hobbes, basically, which all have different hit points. Essentially, there's a standard Hob, which are basic Hobbes, which are just barely adorned and sporting virtually no armor at all, and consist of generally warriors and mages using axes. There's warrior Hobbes, which are generally a bit stronger, charge into battle wearing basic clothes and a helmet, and utilize a combination of axes and hammers. There are brute Hobbes, similar in appearance to the infamous warrior Hobbes of Fable 2 and Fable 3. Brute Hobbes in the original Fable are still very strong, displaying a consistency of inflicting a large amount of damage with their weapons. They are distinguished by their red skin, muscular frame, helmet, and overalls. And then there are commander Hobbes, which are the toughest form of Hob, and these 4 Hobbes look identical to the brutes, save for their black skin. They also have a tendency to inflict greater damage and boast superior health.
Yep, so as you've sort of discussed, there are actually several Hobbes that are able to use will, but the commentators in the Crucible remark that they use natural magic, so it might not be the same type of will as humans can use, and this is obviously sort of a magical power that is created from the earth rather than the will. And this is so the will is obviously a magical energy created from the soul, whereas I think what the Hobbes use is from the earth. This could be an error though, since will is, I guess, akin to magic, so it could all be the same thing, but I think it would be pretty interesting if Hobbes were able to tap into some sort of natural form of will, I guess. The Hob Cave is located in Rookridge in Fable 2. In the Crucible, the hero must fight some Hobbes in 2 of the rounds, 3 if you count the troll match as well. Folklore of the time claims that Hobbes were once children, so this is just a description from the game. again, sort of carries through all three games, but everybody sort of has these folklores claiming that Hobbs are actually just children that were kidnapped and turned into them.
Yeah.
Also,
This
it
could
turns out,
be a story. This could be one of those old wives' tales.
yeah,
To stop them from
there
running
isn't
off
really
into the woods.
there isn't really any evidence to actually prove that. That's just sort of what a lot of the folklore states. In reality, Hobbs are also actually quite cowardly and shall run amok, slamming into walls and jumping off cliffs, especially when you kill the Stilt Hobbs or Mage Hobbs. And sometimes after slamming into the walls, the Hobbs may actually just die without the player even having to lift their sword. So they're not the strongest of enemies, but they are very annoying still.
That's right. In Fable, there are a few more classes of Hobbs, so all the same ones from Fable 1, but the extra ones here are there's camo Hobbs, which are dressed in green camouflage clothes and wielding both a melee and a ranged weapon, mainly like a Hob-sized blunderbuss or a mace. They're basically equivalent to the warrior Hobbs from the first game, more or less. Then you've got the mage wizard Hobbs again, which are the Hobbs that use like odd staves when fighting and wear kind of spiffy suits. They can use the Raised Dead, Force Push, and Inferno attacks. Then there's Hollow Hobbs, which are summoned by the Mage Hobbs. These creatures are the Hob version of Hollow Men, so they're basically ghosts. Kamikaze Hobbs, which are the ones that basically almost like having warrior Hobbs with like explosives strapped onto their backs. And they kind of, I guess, run into you and charge and try and explode. There's a Hob that's called Rifle Hobbs that have the blunderbuss and shoot rifles. The Stilt Hobbs, as mentioned before, so they don't usually do much. They walk slowly around on like wooden legs and occasionally fire miniature blunderbusses at you. Their only dangerous move is the stomp that they can use when you're in close quarters. But they're generally immune to low-level area spells. But generally speaking, if you kill them, the other ones kind of scatter, and they're not that hard to kill, really. Commander Hobbs are still there, and then the Hob Child Catcher, which is a new one, which is an unused character who can be depicted from Fable 2 artwork only. It was used to catch children likely for prey or to transform into Hobbs. It is not known what purpose he would have had in-game if there were more of them. The Child Catcher didn't make it into the game for unknown reasons.
Yeah, so as we said, like if this did make it into the game, it would be pretty cut and dry evidence that like Hobbs do reproduce by sort of capturing children and turning them into Hobbs, but because it didn't get put in, there's probably a reason for that, I guess. So we really don't have like definitive like proof that Hobbs can do that. So
yeah,
you know, we sort of just have to take that with a grain of salt. Like it's probably true that they can, but we don't know. So
yeah. So in Fable 3, there were only two different types of Hobbs from previously mentioned. Those were Ambusher Hobbs. So the ambushes are most commonly found in story sequences portraying Hobbs, such as the Mist Peak monorail. Finding ambushes is impossible during normal exploration, so you don't really need to worry about it too much. And then the other one is Forest Hobbs, which are basically fairly rare, and they can only be found in Morningwood, Driftwood, which is only on the Pest Control quest, and the Sunset House. And their only difference from normal Hobbs is that they have a 3-pronged candle or bits of shrubs and bushes on their heads, and that's it really. The rest of it is all the same.
Yeah, and it actually says once again here that in the Fable 3 art book, there is another concept art of a Hob child catcher, but again, they didn't put it in the game. So again, that's 2 times that they've sort of decided against it. So for whatever reason that may be, we still can't sort of say with certainty that that's a thing.
Perhaps an attempt to keep the mystery a little bit, or well, who knows really, I guess.
Yeah.
So Hobbs are a constant problem Hobbs are revealed to infest the edgelands of Albion in Fable the Journey. Because the edgelands are a frontier land with little in the way of permanent settlements, the Hobbs are unable to get their hands on the more advanced industrial technology of Fable 3, such as guns. Therefore, the Hobbs encountered in Fable the Journey seem more primitive again, relying on old maces and crossbows.
Yep. So Hobbs are a constant problem in the Edgelands, which is made quickly evident in Fable the Journey. Their constant ambushes, roadside forts, and mines all present a problem, both to the local inhabitants and to Gabriel as he progresses on his journey. In addition to fighting through Hob forts and doing battle with Hob soldiers, Gabriel also encounters mounted Hobbs riding some kind of bull, some sort of like Hob-sized bull creature. So we've got a list of sort of trivia stuff here as well. During the Hob Cave quest, if you rescue the bandit in a side room and manage to get him to the focus stone in the cave itself, you are able to replace the child with him. If you do so later on, if you return there, not including the time where you're chasing Jack, there will be a large barrel in the exact same place as the sacrifice was at, and the barrel is unbreakable. So I guess the bandit is now a barrel.
Yeah, there you go. In some of the Hob caves throughout the games, there are shrines with teddy bears on them, which generally means that Hobs are either worshipping them or maybe they're retaining some of their childhood inclinations.
Yeah, again, another hint towards that potential sort of idea, but still not hardcore evidence. In the first Fable, the basic Hobs actually appear to be wearing bandages, which is pretty interesting. It sort of goes to show that maybe they're intelligent enough to at least, deal with their wounds.
Yep. A couple of theories on the names for them. It could be a reference to like Hobbs or like Hobgoblin, which is quite likely, but it's spelt differently. And the way it's generally spelt is after the English philosopher Thomas Hobbes, who is best known for the quote, "The life of man, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short." Those last three adjectives in particular are a fitting description of the creatures. So I think that could be the most likely. And to expand on that a bit more, in Thomas Hobbes' most renowned work, which is called Leviathan, he proposes a state of nature wherein, without the rule of law, humanity depredates upon each other. This is superficially comparable to William Golding's novel Lord of the Flies, where children stranded upon an island regress to violent tribalism. And it also, I believe it also resembles the people, and I can't remember the name of them, found in the Time Machine or the Time Traveler by what's his name? Oh my god, he's a very famous like old school science fiction writer, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Anyone in the comments let us know, or I'll put this in the description, or I'll comment it when I remember. But basically, I think H.G. Wells is what the name is. But basically, when you travel like 1,000 years in the future, humanity had basically evolved again into two different forms. There were those that lived underground that were short and brutish, and there were those that lived above ground that were like tall and like weak, basically. So yeah, that could also be a reference point too.
Yep. At the end of Fable, the credits actually boast a team member whose last name is actually Hobbes. So again, the name could also be a reference to them, but probably not. But there's a chance.
Yep. In Fable 2, if you kill a Hob with a high level of shock, you kind of see like a squished together human skeleton, which generally implies that Hobs have a similar bone structure to humans.
Yep, in Fable 2, during a loading screen, it also tells us that there is a saying that Hobbs were once children led astray into dark places by whispering voices, which again sort of hints towards the fact that maybe some of the like pixie and fairy, like dark pixie and fairy enemies leading these children out and turning them into Hobbs, but still, we don't know.
Yeah, so in Fable 2, when inside Chesty's world, and when you encounter the Hobbs, they are at least a head taller than you. This generally reinforces the idea that they are children, which are possibly older than you were at that time.
Yep. Concept art reveals an unused character for Fable 2, the Hob Childcatcher, as we said. But this doesn't really explain the whispering voices that are mentioned in some of the other things we've talked about. Instead, as revealed in the original Fable, I think we're pretty certain that the nymphs are probably what the whispering voices are supposed to be, like the Darkwood nymphs and stuff. So maybe there's a bit of a symbiotic relationship between those two there. Maybe the nymphs lead children into caves and the Hobbs turn them into Hobbs, or something like that. I don't know. But that's the most likely, I guess, theory that everyone has in Albion. In Fable 2, standard Hobbs actually also appear to be wearing pajamas, which is pretty funny. It's also not clear why, but the spirits summoned by the Raise Dead spell, when there are no fresh corpses nearby, actually take on the form of Hobbs.
Yeah.
Which could be something to do with the earth magic we were talking about before. Like maybe that's like a natural form or something.
That's right. And I mean, and the pajama thing is another thing to reinforce that maybe these children were kind of taken at night, if possible. Look, Hobbs, along with other weak bandits, are generally one-shot kills 95% of the time if you're using the Enforcer. The same in the first Fable game. Like once you've got a stronger sword and you've got your strength up, like most of them, not all of them, are generally 1 to 1.5, 2 hit kills. Same with the bandits. They're generally those weaker cannon fodder type enemy that there's lots of, which is one of the reasons why they're quite annoying sometimes. There are some known expressions that the Hobbs do use, and it's like things like point and laugh, bloodlust, roar, and slap, and even worship when under the chaos spell.
Yep. There's actually one variant of a Hob which is shown with the silver key around its neck, although the key actually can't be collected, so it might not be an actual silver key from Fable, but it could well be.
Yeah, it's possible. Some fleeing Hobbs will just hide, but others, especially near a drop, will commit suicide. Unfortunately, you don't actually get any experience points to use for those suicidal Hobbs.
Yeah, so you got to make sure you massacre them quick.
I mean, I feel like you should get experience points, but just lower levels because they've done it because of you.
Yeah.
So, it's still as a result of your actions. Like, it should reward you for, say, targeting the strongest one first and then resulting in them, scattering. I guess they're a bit like, a little bit reminiscent of the grunts from Halo. Where the grunts there's not, maybe there's 4 of them with like one elite, and if you kill the elite first, then often the rest will scatter and start running away. And so it's this idea of cut the head off the snake and the rest of the body will stop, basically.
Yeah. Inside in Fable 3, inside a cell in Nigel Ferret's hideout, there's actually a Hob worshipping a box, which could be a reference to the game Portal because the box has hearts on every side, and it looks kind of like a companion cube. And also near the cell, you can find a cake, which is also sort of a Portal reference. So it could be a Portal reference.
Yeah, you'll know better than me because I didn't play that game, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, contrary to most beliefs, Hobbs do have great intellectual capacities. Their ability to mass manufacture unique staves that deposit a will spell into a sphere and puts it on an impact detonation, releasing a low-level will spell into the targeted area. The Raise Dead spell is the exception, as the Hob must channel a Raise Dead spell, but the sphere remains until the summoning is complete. So they are, however, extremely cowardly, and thus their sense of cowardice often goes before their logic, which results in the stereotype of the dumb Hob.
Yep. When not in combat, they can actually be seen in special events in a relatively advanced culture, including what appears to be religion, as we said, salvaging operations, construction, hunting, adoption, and locksmithing. Examples include the gladiatorial arena that the Hobbs trapped the hero of Brightwall in during Fable 3, the lock on the Hob cave door in Fable 2, the adoption of Tommy in Hob Squatters, the worship of what appears to be the teddy bear in Hobnobbing with Hobbs, including a tribal dance, apparent priests and shamans, and a temple are excellent examples of Hob religion. They have made hundreds of constructions with salvaged goods, which is seen all throughout the games, which is goods that have been thrown away by the people of Albion, but eventually put to use in massive building projects by the Hobbs. This leads to the belief that either they can't or don't want to collect raw resources and refine them into manufactured products, and rather use the scrap from Albion's wasteful citizens. So maybe they don't have smithing, but they can sort of scavenge.
Yeah. In Fable 3, warrior Hobbs wear red coats from soldiers, so that's kind of a reference to the red coats, obviously. Hobbs are now slightly less likely to flee in terror and smack into wolves in Fable 3. And in Fable 3, if you look carefully at a wizard's beltline, you can generally see a teddy bear's head for a buckle.
A Hob is also a generic term for various dwarf-like and elf-like magical creatures in Germanic folklore, so that could also be another
going back to like hobgoblin or anything, but that was spelled H-O-B rather than H-O-B-B-E-S.
Yeah.
So an old Hob, again H-O-B, is also an old name for the devil. And then since some Hobs are larger and more powerful than others, and some almost as tall as an adult, it could mean that some Hobs are actually teenagers rather than children, and such as the warrior, mage, and commander Hobs.
Yep. Which is definitely a pretty interesting concept. In game and in some concept art, Hobbs can be seen wearing their pants backwards. In a quest in Fable 3, Walter also mentions that they're smart enough to use magic, but not smart enough to wear their pants the right way around, which is pretty funny.
So again, in Fable 3, the Hob that is killed by Walter's magic can be killed by the player by having the safety lock off and using spells, mostly area spells.
Yep. In Fable and Fable the Lost Chapters, if the player was to stab a Hob when it's dead, its mouth and stomach will move, making it look like the Hob was still breathing. But when the hero removes his sword from the dead Hob, it will stop breathing. So I guess that's an interesting thing that some weird players have discovered.
Yeah, got too much time on their hands. But that's okay. In Fable 3, searching bookcases in the reliquary will sometimes yield the following description. This bookcase contains a complete set of cooking for Hobbs. The pictures are not pleasant.
In early concepts, Hobbs would be able to ride big wolves in the first Fable, but the idea was actually put away. However, in Fable the Journey, there are plenty of moments when you have to battle Hobbs riding cattle during the journey, so again, I guess the idea was there, but they never followed through with it until Fable the Journey.
Yeah.
And actually in Fable Heroes, during the Millfields level, wolf riding hobs are encountered, and they're called hob jockeys, which is pretty funny.
Well, also that's a reference to knob jockey, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess that's all we have from lore and established canon and certain theories from the internet. I mean, I guess it's probably, I know it's completely unrelated, but I also wanted to say that a reference just for anyone to the name, also seen as from Calvin and Hobbes, which that Hobbes was, I believe, officially named after the philosopher Thomas Hobbes. But Hobbes was Calvin's like stuffed tiger that he imagined was real and that actually loved to eat tuna fish. So tuna fish sandwich or tuna fish anything. It's because it's all potentially related to the beginning. I mean, this is another story involving a Hobbes with a child, and also a bit of imagination. So I mean, my feeling is that in Fable, like, because Fable really is just like, you know, I guess it's also using kind of base level fantasy tropes and old school, you know, a lot of the time. And so Hobbes probably was based on the old wives' tale back in the day that, you know, to stop children from running away, that they would get taken and turn into a monster or something. And basically, I think it's all related to the same thing. And I think that's what this is.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's actually, it's pretty nice that they haven't outright like showed Hobbes kidnapping children and turning them into more Hobbes, because it's like, we're pretty certain that is the case and that's how they create more Hobbes, but we don't know like for sure 100%. So, you know, it's definitely pretty interesting, and I would love to hopefully in a subsequent Fable game maybe learn more about them, despite the fact that they're definitely one of the more annoying enemies in the game. I think that's by design rather than just because they happen to be annoying. I think they're definitely intended to be kind of annoying. So
yeah, well, there's a lot of them are cannon fodder, and as we said, the ones in particularly Fable 1 that like throw the like mana bombs or whatever they are really annoying, because they're generally one-hit kills, but they stand off the battle, so you've got to like get your way over to them and then take them out first if you don't want to just keep getting hit and knocked down. Doesn't take much health, especially later on in the game, but it's just annoying. And like there's bandits that have that same thing, but with crossbows obviously in the game too, so they're basically a bit of cannon fodder and a bit of like just making you kind of think a bit more rather than just being able to blindly hack away.
Yeah, but with that, that's pretty much all we have for lore on the Hobbes. If there's anything else you guys want us to talk about, let us know in the comments. But yeah, with that, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See you in the next video.
Hey!
Hello again.
I've heard people
You found any
warn that.
interesting reading material? A little macabre, perhaps, but the tale of Maxley could teach some of our pupils a valuable lesson. It lifts one's spirits to see a hero take such a keen interest in education. There once lived a Hob, and Maxley was his name. He was that rarest of Hobbs, one with a brain. Making his bed in a stream wasn't for him. He'd rather live in a village, there among men. One day he decided to travel to town. He slew a great noble and put on his gown. In Bowerstone by all was he complimented, and though short of stature, he stood proud and erected. But Maxley forgot what he was and grunted hello. And when the men heard his voice, all they did know. They called out for guards, who lopped off his head. It stuck on a spike, dumb and ugly and dead. So when you're about to open your mouth, remember Maxley the Hob, for it's better to be thought an idiot than to be killed by a mob.